primordial soup. And with a long period of time, the combination of random mutation and natural selection, this far, far more advanced code created itself, improved on itself, diversified itself, and also acquired the capacity to decode and reproduce itself. How? To those scientists, that's what they believe. Starts just unicellular, comes to mean. But God says life came later on, and he created according to its kind. Now, to those scientists, I like to ask them, come on now, let us reason together. What is more likely? A bunch of monkeys on a typewriting that come and gave all that information into our DNA. Spoke it to be. Now, if we agree that all information that we know today comes from an intelligent mind, shouldn't we follow the same reasoning with information found in DNA? Or is the secular scientist community too attached to their own faith in materialism to see the obvious? In which case, another verse comes to mind, and that'll be Romans 1, 20-22. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So God shows us everything. We are without excuse. It's all in nature. But that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imagination, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Unfortunately, it feels like we see a lot of this in the scientific community today. Job makes it very clear, Job's again 7-9, and we read that earlier. But ask now the beast, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee, or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee, who knoweth not in all this that the hand of the Lord has wrought this. Just look around you. Don't go to crazy theories. Sometimes the simplest explanation is just the one to go with. Now, personally, I'm convinced that proper research in all fields of science will vindicate the Bible, the Word of God, just like the book of Job says. Now, move on. Our third and last discovery. Sorry, I'm going a little bit over time here. Hope I'm not boring you either. Our third discovery is the fossil geology and the part played by the flood waters. So we're going through Genesis again. You see, we're moving further on. So maybe surprisingly to some of us, it is Leonardo da Vinci, there in the 15th century, who was the first to recognize fossils as living creatures trapped in the environment. He was way ahead of his time. It was not until the 19th century that it was generally agreed upon. Now, Da Vinci didn't know exactly how this organism were formed, fossilized, but we are made to believe that it takes thousands, if not millions of years to do so. Those are examples I took from the internet. Those four things represent the same thing, okay? It's the same story, 4 different slides. Every time you'll see the common thing, there is water, there is sediment covering the body of that dinosaur, layers have been deposited above it. We found it. So millions of years of deposition, and then we dig through and we found dinosaur. Now, research do agree though, today, that it has to be very quick. I don't know if you can see clearly here, but that's a fossil of a reptile giving birth. So that takes thousands of years to fossilize, and that was a long labor. You got another example, you've got this fossil here, a fish eating another fish. Again, thousands of years. It's a pretty long meal. So yeah, the rapid coverage of the body by sediment, so sediments are matter that settles at the bottom of a liquid, is what requires to form a fossils. Now, fossils are found worldwide, and they are found in sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks on this map are in yellow and orange. Everywhere. Okay? So everywhere, sedimentary rocks. So everywhere there are rocks that have been deposited by water. Even in the central of Africa, far away from any ocean. Even in the central of the United States, central of Russia, even far away from any major body of water, you found rocks that have been deposited by water. Now, there's a textbook that says sedimentary rocks are the most common rocks exposed on Earth's surface, but are only a minor constituent of the entire crust. Sedimentary rocks are largely created by erosion from water, for example, rainfall or streams. So yeah, now, today when we look at sedimentary rock forming or creation of it, we see rainfall, we see streams taking a little bit of dirt and depositing somewhere else in a thin layer. And yeah, it does take time. So scientists take that snail rhythm of things and says, well, to create so many layers, it takes millions of years. But that's already been proven wrong many times. If we take a more recent example, we'll take the example of Mount St. Helens. The eruption was in 1980, so some of you knew that. You've probably seen it in the news, actually. It was ginormous. You can see the mountain there, yeah? Yeah. It was very dramatic at the time. And it was amazing for creation research. You see, within a few years, a mountain blew up, deposited a huge amount, you can see in yellow here, of ashes and mud and everything. So a whole brand new landscape, all flat. And within a few years, you can see canyons forming. And in 1982, another eruption came and a huge mud flow rushed through those rocks, through this deposit that was done in 1980. We already had rock formed and it created canyons as big as those that you can see here. In a few hours. In a few hours, we first in 1980 had layers upon layers of rock deposited. And in a few hours, 2 years later, a mud flow carved a huge canyon up to 43 meters deep. Now, do we know something that was a catastrophic event that happened over the entire Earth? I think we're all familiar with the story of Genesis 6 and 7 and the Great Flood. This flood covered absolutely everything. It was everywhere above the highest mountain at a time. So yes, to a young Earth, we'll point out a catastrophic event like the one in Genesis 6 and 7 can form sedimentary layers and at a dramatically accelerated rate and form things like we see at Mount St. Helens today. It is true, the Bible isn't a science textbook, but it touches on biology, astronomy, geology, philosophy, and it is indicated by paleontology, archaeology, and history, all the science that you can imagine. So I hope that maybe I have provided today an answer for the reason of the hope that is in you. Or maybe I have opened a new interest, especially for our younger generation. Please, be like King Solomon, the wisest man, that you may have the same impact on your community. Amazing discovery, clash of minds today with Walter Weiss's Genesis conflict. That's the one converted me. So I do